But give us the other side, Chamath, if you have one.
I think that Jerome Powell is in an increasingly untenuous situation because he will be looked at as politicizing the office of the Federal Reserve. There is enough data that can justify cutting rates. If you cut rates, and we've talked about this before, two things will happen. Number one is people will take some amount of money out of the money market funds because they will want to go and seek superior returns somewhere else. It will increase the velocity of money at the same time. And so if we're at an all-time high today with rates at 4.5% and Powell is back against the wall to cut, the only road from here is probably up.
Today, we saw President Donald Trump not only warn Fed Chair Jerome Powell that he should resign, but he sends a message to all Bitcoin and crypto holders that US markets are about to see a massive shift. Today, we have billionaire investor and CEO Chamath breaking down what's happening in the market and why he believes Donald Trump just changed everything. He notes that factors like tariffs and recession fears are driving market volatility. And according to Chamath, a major market rally is on the horizon. Chamath has been an outspoken proponent of Bitcoin and has shared his perspective on its effects within the current economic uncertainty. He believes Bitcoin's value will continue to surge, and as a risk asset with a market recovery, Bitcoin will increase alongside it. However, Chamath emphasizes that uncertainty remains a critical factor. As the market remains in limbo, Bitcoin will face pressure in the short term. Bitcoin's price currently sits just over $107,000, still up over 13% this year. There's potential for a sharp recovery in the coming weeks. Chamath shares more details and his predictions for the days and weeks ahead in his latest interview as the market braces for a massive shock. Drop your comments down below and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here.
I mean, look, if I was a betting man, which I am,
You are.
I think the free money trade here is, I think you can make a lot of money right now. Why is that? The velocity of money. So what is this? This is the M2 money supply. It's a measure of how much money is circulating in the economy. What this shows is the impact of rates, where we were able to start to slow down and contract the money supply. But then as you saw, as the economy stabilized and people started to project what's possible in 18 to 24 months, you started to see money coming back into the system. That's great because a percentage of this capital gets allocated into things that can generate a superior return to money markets. So you would say, well, where does it go from here? Look at how much money is sitting in money market funds. What this starts to show you is you have trillions and trillions of dollars of dry powder on the sidelines that will need to find a home. And so you could see this thing get re-rated quite aggressively. And then the question is, do you do it where you manage your risk and you're short some stuff? Or do you just say, you know what, I'm just going to take it all up and take most of my shorts off and let the thing go? I think that if Powell starts an aggressive cutting program, either because he has to or because he's trying to keep his job, I mean, man, you could see the S&P at 7,000 very quickly. And so if we're at an all-time high today with rates at 4.5% and Powell back against the wall to cut, the only road from here is probably up. There's just a whole deluge of economic data that came out. The GDP print for Q1 came in at minus 0.5%. I mean, so how could anybody interpret
for Q1? Right.
So how could anybody at the Fed or in the media covering the Fed not understand that? By the way, when we were talking about this, just like I said that we're probably going to print like a 3 handle on GDP in Q2, we also talked about the fact that we were probably going to have a negative GDP print in Q1. So we've been knowing it for months. We've basically been calling it right. So why is there an inability to just look at the data and just say the obvious, truthful thing? So
I think
whatever you think of Trump, it doesn't really matter. Rates should not be where they are today. They should be 50 to 100 basis points lower. Period. It's categorical.
He'll do it in September. He's going to do a 25 in September. It's
There's
obvious.
no logical explanation for it. There is a subjective explanation, and that's political.
I think he just, after the tariff stuff, he said, let's just push it out 2 months, get some more data, and then we'll cut it in September. What's the difference between a July, August cut or a September? It's probably not going to be meaningful in the arc of history.
But if you're against the tariffs and you're buying into, Jim Cramer's doom narrative or Larry Summers' doom narrative, that's more of a reason to cut.
Is there a poly market on who replaces Powell? Nick, is there anything in there about who replaces Powell?
He's going to announce it. I mean, I think he'll just announce it. And he'll make Bessent. People seem to like Bessent. He feels like a steady hand. He feels like he's got experience. It's
maybe
obviously
like
going to be Bessent.
who is the most likely new Fed chair or something like that?
I think it's Bessent. Here we go.
Oh, there
Let's
it is.
see.
Chris Waller, really? Huh.
Bessent only 14%. I think that's your sleeper right there. But it's listen, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people with 14 to 22%. So this is a
And Bessent's only at
dead heat.
14%. Yeah, I agree. That seems low. Hassett's at 18. I mean, I work with both Bessent and Hassett, and I know them both well, and they'd both be great.
They both would be great, right? They both have a ton of experience, a lot of time in the game, which is what you want.
Warsh has been in the game for a long time. He really knows how the markets work. Chamath, is this a case of, or Sachs, is this a case of picking, you have a bench, do you want to move Bessent out of where he's doing a good job? I think Bessent's crushing at Treasury. I would love to keep him in the job. So
I think that's the decision, right?
I think the thing is elevating Waller that's an interesting set of implications. Warsh is, very consummate and capable of doing the job. The question is, does Trump believe he's MAGA or does Trump believe he's more established Republican?
Sorry, there's another name on the list that we forgot.
Elon Musk or Trump? Oh, Chamath is in there.
Chamath.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay, well, let's get those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers. You can make 99.8 cents.
I think that I'm part of a cascade that happens if something else happens.
For months, he's been emphasizing to investors that all the necessary factors are aligning now. He expects we are entering a period marked by parabolic upward moves in prices. But all that is about to change as the market gears up for a shock. Tariff fears are beginning to increase, and investors are hesitant. When thinking through the situation, he recently noted that Bitcoin may experience cyclical movements, even within a broader long-term downtrend. But the bigger picture still points toward major gains, despite all the factors in the market.
The Genius Act, we just passed the
let's
Senate.
talk about it.
I think you have your fingerprints on this. Is that true? Yeah? Tell us everything.
Well, it's definitely something we supported, and this is, I think, a huge milestone. I mean, just what basically happened is we had this Genius Act, which is the stablecoin bill, passed the Senate with 68 votes, got 18 Democrats. They came on board. We had to hit that key threshold of 60 votes in the Senate. That's the threshold you need in the Senate, unless it's a narrow exception for reconciliation. So it's very, very hard to pass any bill out of the Senate, and you need a significant amount of bipartisan support. And we got that. Now, when you consider where we were a year ago, you realize what huge progress this is for the crypto industry. A year ago, you had crypto companies being prosecuted. You had this whole regulation through prosecution approach, where Gary Gensler, who was the chair of the SEC then, he wouldn't tell startups what the rules were, but they would just announce prosecutions. And this was driving all the crypto innovation offshore. And I think we were basically poised to lose the crypto industry in the United States. What happened then is President Trump adopted this cause. He announced that he wanted to make the United States the crypto capital of the planet. He really campaigned on this. And as part of his administration, he in the very first week signed a new executive order, making it clear that his administration supported crypto. We've been rooting out all the Biden war on crypto rules and regulations at the agency level. And now we have this first major legislative win. And I would expect the House will act in the next few weeks on this, and then the president will have a bill he can sign. The response of the industry was, okay, we're just going to leave the United States. And that was what was in the process of happening until President Trump won the election and then changed the tone in Washington. I think there was one other really significant thing that happened because, obviously President Trump has gotten Republicans on board with this cause, but the question is, why are Democrats on board with it? During the Biden administration, Elizabeth Warren really called the shots on crypto, and it was well reported that Gensler was sort of her ally and her pick. I've kind of joked that Warren controlled the Biden auto pen on crypto because she really did exert that kind of influence. So the question is, well, what changed? And I think one of the big things is that in this last election, Sherrod Brown, who was the chair of the banking committee for the Democrats in the Senate, lost his seat in a close election against Bernie Moreno. And I think there were many reasons for him to lose that seat. He was far to the left of voters in Ohio. Nonetheless, he had been a successful politician there for a long time. And one of the reasons why he lost is because the crypto industry really got behind Bernie Moreno, because Sherrod Brown was just a total blocker to any crypto legislation in the mold of Elizabeth Warren. And I think that a lot of smart Democrats looked at that and said, why are we dying on this hill again? You know?
Yeah.
And I think Schumer...
Well, it's also extraordinarily popular, Sachs, with consumers and businesses. So there is a demand here, and Korea...
Well, you've got something like 50 million wallet holders in the U.S. and they're voters, particularly when what we're talking about here is creating a regulatory regime. You know, it shouldn't be hard to sell Democrats on new regulations. But in this case, the reason why there's broad bipartisan support is because the crypto industry itself is calling for those regulations, because having regulatory certainty is better for them than the possibility of the return of a Gary Gensler-like figure who just prosecutes them without telling them what the rules are. It is true that the number one stablecoin issuer on the planet right now is an offshore company. And that is partly because there has not been a regulatory framework in the US, and there's been hostility towards the crypto space. And so the logical reaction to that is to either not get involved in the crypto space, which is what the banks have done until now, or you go offshore. Neither one is good. And you can see in the wake of this Genius Act, the stablecoin bill, that the banks have now talked about getting into stablecoins. They're going to issue one. And then also Tether will, under this act, will have 3 years to come onshore. But the bottom line is they will have to operate in the United States.
The crypto market is poised for a meteoric surge in prices. He illustrates Bitcoin's current undervaluation, drawing in investors and enticing speculators eager to ride the waves of September's price fluctuations in pursuit of profits. Chamath's outlook is fueled by the impending wave of mass adoption, which he believes presents an unparalleled opportunity to get in on the action. He sees the race toward a six-figure price target. What's more, he highlights the intriguing historical pattern of Bitcoin's value surging 10x. He asserts that the promises made by the Federal Reserve and central banks have been hollow, leading to excessive money printing and a proliferation of poor investments. And with the aftermath of the recent inflation surge, Chamath says this will not lead to a return to the status quo. He argues that the economy has spun out of control, with the US facing a mounting debt crisis. Kaiser presents two bleak possibilities: hyperinflation or a deflationary depression. In either scenario, the overall quality of life deteriorates. He notes the absence of viable solutions, indicating an even greater severity of the crisis. Interestingly, he points out how political figures are discussing Bitcoin as part of a potential solution, marking a shift towards a Bitcoin-centric financial framework. What do you think about Chamath's prediction for Bitcoin, the crypto market cap, as well as the institutional capital pouring into the space? Comment down below.